Yeah, there's something about how you read a book that inspires you or it moves you in some way, and then suddenly you start to find connections from that book to everything.
Yep.
It just has these little lessons for you, and I have found that as I reread books, I realize how they've affected how I show up, kind of unconsciously. I'm saying things that I'm almost like plagiarizing the characters in a sense, but I do it in my own way. But it's fascinating how, particularly fiction, it it affects you in a way that you're not really aware of right away.
Yeah. It must have given the Midnight Library away to somebody. So hopefully it was read and had an effect on them as well.
Yeah.
I had to reorder it.
Hmm.
And um, I will say, like, credit to the author. It's one of the only books in the last like 3 to 6 months that I've actually bought the hardcover
Hmm.
version, the like printed version of Period.
Yeah.
It's my wife, Meg, is like so adamant about me like stop filling our house with books, which is there's a small irony to it because she's like really into large format coffee table
Uh-huh.
books. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, like this book is tiny, like it can fit in a drawer, but I got your point and I'll
Right.
make it work. Um, but
Right.
like it's worth having this thing in your hands. It's a really
Yeah.
good thinking about the context of the Midnight Library. And it is like I don't think a lot of coaching clients, life coaching clients, and to some degree, like um, leadership coaching clients, executive coaching clients, I don't know that they realize that how much power is in visioning exercises until they start doing them.
Right.
And there is like some degree of discomfort, like, dude, what are we doing? Like, close my eyes, seriously, on a Zoom, like just you and me, close my eyes.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can buy in and go there,
Mhm.
extremely powerful, like
Right.
what you can
Yeah.
see.
Right. Right. Yeah. You have to give yourself permission. And so what happened in the event you're talking about is, safety was created.
Yeah.
Right. And then all the parts of you show up, not just the one that is like, oh, I'm a student and I'm learning a thing. It's like, well, no, that's one facet of your identity.
Mhm.
Yeah. And actually in this book made me think of identity too. The main character is, it starts with her in her estimation, kind of mediocre life, ordinary life. Uh, but she is not just a 30-something woman that works in a music shop in a town in England. She's a swimmer. She's a musician. She is enthusiastic about the environment, in particular, climate change and how it's affecting, the polar ice caps and that kind of thing. And that's all her. But she's not giving herself permission to be those things.
She's a sister.
She's a sister. Yes. Yeah. And that's a thread that you see like throughout all the realities that,
Yeah.
that she enters. Uh, should we describe the book, or do you think that should be a thing that we just tack on?
Go ahead.
Okay. Uh, so Midnight Library tells the story of Norris D, a woman in her 30s who works in a music shop in a town in England. And she spends a lot of time at the beginning sort of ruminating about how kind of ordinary and even mediocre in her estimation her life is. And through a series of unfortunate events, she comes to the decision to end her life. Um, and the moment she does, she finds herself in a library. And and as it turns out, she was a kind of a library nerd. When she was in school, she spent a lot of time in the library, and she was friends with the librarian. So that librarian, Mrs. Elm, appears to her in this place, and it's a place in between life and death. And the point of the place is for her to examine what could have been. and the shelves are lined with books, and each book is a different version of her life. That could have been if she had just done one thing slightly differently. And what all she has to do is open the book, and she experiences that life. And if she finds one that suits her, then she will stay there. She will live, and she will end up staying there. And there's sort of this time limit, but she doesn't really know when it's coming. And so there's this weird tension like throughout the book. There's one special book called the Book of Regret. It looks different than the other ones, and it's big and it's heavy. At least hers is. And as she looks at it, she's just hit with all of her regrets. And there's something, I'm hesitant like to say too much because, there's spoilers, and I would love for people to read this. But as she experiences her other lives, something happens to the Book of Regrets. I'll just leave it at that. And it's sort of, I don't know. This is one of these books that it's not really heavy, but I kept finding myself putting it down to reflect
Hmm.
on in what I just read.
Yeah.
And that's just it's the best kind of experience because it's not like the author was said something deep. It's just this ordinary life was really inspiring to me because how she was so introspective and reflective on all of her parts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I don't know, there are a couple little details I'll add in maybe for effect. One of them is that library is practically infinite.
Right.
It just goes and goes and goes in every direction, which we can talk about uh,
Mhm.
if we get there. And just to reiterate, the main character's name is Nora Seed, Seed. Her sort of teacher, librarian, mentor, sage wisdom provider in the library is Mrs. Elm. So we've got some cool like novice, seasoned uh human dynamic going on there. Um yeah, and the lives that she finds herself in, they're not, and just as like one more way to promote people to like get into this book.
Mm.
It goes all around the world. Like she's in Antarctica. She's backstage at giant like rock arena concerts. There's a lot happening for her. So the ride itself is a lot of fun. It's not just like straight, like constant wisdom. The storytelling itself is a good ride.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm sure you have copious notes about this. I was thinking about how do I want to structure what I want to say about this. And
Well, yeah, okay. This is great. This is why you and I, Mike, are doing this together. I
yeah,
actually try to take as few notes as possible.
right.
Do you have any?
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about science fiction, and I primarily read science fiction when I'm reading fiction. And yes, there's kind of the nerdy aspect to it that I appreciate. But what I really appreciate is you can use science to create perspectives that wouldn't normally exist. And so you can just like maybe it's an alien and they're in front of a human for the first time and they could be so different that it makes us look at ourselves in a new way. And I love this like, the Midnight Library. It's a tiny bit science fiction in that they talk about it for like 5 minutes about quantum mechanics. And
Yeah,
the rest of the book is just it's using that little device to
yeah.
create this beautiful story.
It reminds me exactly what you just described. Reminds me of a realization I had many years ago. I don't know how many, but about how because like physics doesn't really apply in your dreams, like
Hmm.
things go down in your dreams that
Right.
can only go down in your dreams
Hmm.
because like the constructs of time and place and movement do not apply there the way that they do in reality. Because I tend to process a lot in my dreams. And so
Hmm.
think it's like it's a relatively imaginative space.
Right.
But I got like that a little bit from the Midnight Library. And it's really is what you're describing. Like let's just get it a little bit outside of reality.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
it's more like an alternate reality. I mean, literally, the book is about alternate realities, but it's like a way of writing that's more alternate reality than it is like sci-fi in a way.
That's right. That's right. It's like the perfect balance to me, and also one of the reasons I love recommending it, because some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to read about little green men or anything." And this is just a little device that's used to like suspend disbelief and just put you in a place and in a perspective that really you can just there's so much freedom, where you can just bend reality a little bit. So yeah, what I have is I wanted to honor the text. So rather than just saying my thing, I went, I read it on a Kindle and I used the highlight feature, and then you can just go and look at all the things you highlighted.
Yeah.
And then I reflected on the things that I highlighted, but I really wanted to keep it like I don't want to write a book report. I just want to like I read a line and then I feel it and something comes up and then that's it.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, because this is not a book review.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, I almost want to look at it like it was like a life of a person we both know.
Yeah.
And we're like, how about those things? How about like that thing she did? You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The first phrase, the passage that really hit me was when she says, "The only way to learn is to live." And it's like, well, okay, it seems obvious, but we don't act that way in general. Like we tend to feel like in order to accomplish something, we have to acquire things, we have to consume things. It's sort of like a scarcity mindset. And the truth is, we tend to have the things that we need. We just have to discover them. And this is what she's doing.
Yeah, I think there's a more for me there, which is that okay, the only way to live is to learn, yet we find ourselves wanting to consume information in an anticipatory way so we don't like screw up when we have to do the thing,
Right.
right? And that is healthy and wise to do, but we really quickly, I'll speak for myself, I very quickly confuse acquiring some knowledge about a thing with having to be perfect at the thing.
Oh yeah. Yes. And that's sort of interesting because as she experiences other lives in this book, in many of them, she is really good at something.
Yeah,
And later she is reflecting on like that's not really what it's all about.
not the thing.
That's not it.
No, okay, so I'm gonna jump to, since you brought that up, there is a line that, I'm gonna toss out there. You could eat in the finest restaurants, you could partake in every sensual pleasure, you could sing on stage in Sao Paulo to 20,000 people, you could soak up whole thunderstorms of applause, you could travel to the ends of the earth, you could be followed by millions on the internet, you could win Olympic medals, but this would all be meaningless without love.
I don't know what to say. That's just perfect.
And, it's all the better after you've read the 200 pages before it. Uh,
Right. Right.
and that, so I'm coming off of these 3 interviews that I just did with, uh, like my fellow late 30 somethings. And it all means nothing without love. And love is so freaking hard to like hold,
It is.
was one of the takeaways. Like one of the people that I interviewed, uh, he and his wife found out that she has MS, and they found that out at like the kickoff of a completely new adventure they were going on together in their lives, like big change kind of adventure.
Yeah.
Um, another couple got married practically right out of college, so they've been together for like really pretty quickly, going on about 20 years, and have been through the ringer in terms of like their own behavior, their own change, etc. maintaining love. Like on one hand, it's kind of like, well, the love is always in the background. Okay, well, not really. Like it's really, you can't just settle on letting love gather dust on the shelf behind you. You have to like work with it and play with it and nurture it with that other person.
Right.
And that's actually like the hard shit about life. It's not like earning your way onto a stage with 20,000 people screaming your name.
That's right. That's right. And as she's experiencing this, I mean, it leads her to say the line that you just quoted. It's there's something lacking. It's like there's fame and fortune and there's even adoration, in the case where she has fans. But there's a tangible sense of, yeah, there's an emptiness
Yeah.
to it.
And
Yeah. And
there's a
where's love?
level, maybe, I'm probably like jumping the shark a little bit, but whatever. Uh, but then even deeper underneath that love piece,
Mhm.
something was still missing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's one of those things. It's like I don't want to spoil things because it's oh
Well, okay, so let's do this. Let's play with this for a second.
yeah.
If you felt, if you were if you are a coach, if Nora was on the other side of a Zoom call with you in a coaching session,
Mhm.
and you can tell that she is on the edge of noticing what may be missing, what's a question that you would ask her?
Um, this is well, no, I'll just say it. I would start with who are you really? Like tell me who you are. It's going to the identity part because we tend to have those things kind of granted to us or granted almost projected onto us. And to know what's important to you, you got to know yourself first. I know that's a cliche, but even cliches have truth to them.
They're
Uh,
cliches because they're annoyingly true.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Uh, as you take hold or embrace kind of your actual the identity that you feel as opposed to the one that's on the surface that's kind of projected on you, you get in touch with what you value, right? And then those are the things you need, not because you should have them or you should do something. These are your deeply ingrained values and needs. And as you embrace those, you go into situations and it's like, oh, it's obvious. This thing is missing here. This is not for me. She learned that through some like iterations by going into different things. And then it was like there was a theme here. Like, no, this is not the life for me. And it's not because it's some superficial thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Another line that
Mhm.
was pretty great. Um, Pick this up. Yeah, so this kind of goes back to that visioning piece a little bit, but I don't know, there's something more here, and it's not really giving anything away, although it may sound like it is. But it's the beginning of a chapter, and it says, as the weeks went by, Nora began to feel something remarkable start to happen. She began to remember aspects of her life that she had never actually lived. And where this took me is like, experiences that I have had when I'm going through a transformation or a period of growth where whether is like literally visioning happening between, myself and a therapist or a coach, or I'm running myself through visioning exercises alone or meditating, whatever. Like some of those things are also like not happening sometimes when we go through transformation. It's just like rolling over us. And you are open and eager to be self-aware, you can't help but see the other ways things can go down. And I think about like, especially for so many people who are going through layoffs right now, like
Mhm.
welcome in like if there is even like a degree of overwhelm about the possibilities that could occur, like give yourself some amount of time for them to cascade over you
Right.
because they all could be.
Right. Yeah. And so in her case, again, this is sort of science fiction, and so she's remembering things from other lives. But in our case, like if you this happens in therapy all the time, right? Where there's like aha moments. You're like, no, that this actually happened. This is actually me, and it's been repressed, or I haven't allowed myself to
Mm.
to let it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also thinking about fictitious future state
Oh, yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like give yourself time. Like there is look, let's take, the coaching that I did with you, for example, like came up with the term, fun bringer at one point. Like that didn't exist in the world at one
No.
point. And then it did because I spent time in imaginary places, wondering, hoping, brainstorming and dreaming about like the kind of state of world that I want to create and how I want to participate in it. Hey Coach Dave was a result of like, I kind of think of Hey Coach Dave as like, honestly, it did come to me in an instant, but it was an instant that required the year before it.
Right.
And like all the ways I thought about the way that, and so I think, I guess what I'm saying is like, it's an invitation to when you are feeling constrained by reality,
Mhm.
those might be the moments that are best to blow out the doors on reality for a little bit and not
Yeah.
go into psychosis, but just like with yourself, grant yourself permission
Right.
to completely freely associate possibilities in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of something that you and I talked about way back. It's around, it's the idea of you have an inspiration, and rather than saying, all right, the goal's over there, I'm going to make a plan with a bunch of milestones. The flip side of it is experiment. Just play with it, right? And this is so aligned with the idea of having fun and fun bringer, um, without being attached to a particular outcome. Just do the thing, and if it doesn't work, that's not failure.
Yeah.
That is more information that helps you figure out what's really important to you.
Yeah.
And again, in this book, that wasn't necessarily her intention, particularly not at the beginning. Right. But over time, when she started getting the hang of it, like she really was really good at this.
Yeah.
She'd show up and not know what the hell was going on, and she'd be able to just roll with it. And it was in my maybe it's just my lens, but I saw these as experiments, and just like you're trying on another version of yourself or your life.
Yeah. And it did um, go from like the first alternate life she dropped into being like that perfection and having to figure it out and the weight of it being right and all of this. Like you go from that first life she dropped into to roll way deeper into the book. And she's able to like have a meta view. She's able to do it and be in it and be zoomed out and
Yeah.
say, okay, but like what's working, what isn't. And I think like Matt Haig doesn't point to this directly. I don't recall at any point, but I think what that is purpose, like having a sense of purpose, as we would call it here in the real world, related to business, maybe related to relationships.
Yeah.
Um, but she's getting to this point where she's like came in the back door on like,
Yeah.
oh, like these things, XYZ things matter to me, and I have to affect the world in this way.
Yes. Yes. And she's getting, even when she is not satisfied with a particular life that she tries on, it's not for nothing. Like she gains additional perspective, additional wisdom that helps her each time. So none of those steps were a waste of her time and energy. I wish we could all embrace this. It's just like, I'm going to do a thing and I don't care what anyone thinks. It's for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to get something from it, even if it's not fame, fortune, a new career, whatever. It'll probably lead to the insight that helps me achieve whatever my aspirations are. But in itself, it's not the end.
Mhm. So what's another quote that you want to honor from the book?
Um, let's see. There's one where she says, success isn't something you measure, and life isn't a race you can win. And again, this is one of those things where, you know, more than ever, we're bombarded with what the right, what a fulfilling life is or what a good life is. And kind of these metrics, so to speak, are imposed on us. You have to have these clothes or this much money or this title, or you have to be really good at whatever. And for me, success is more about being than doing. And
Mhm.
the measures of success, I mean, obviously they're subjective, but they come from within each of us. And so I always, when I work with my clients, they give me goals, and it's clear. We talk about, okay, what's the measure of success for that goal, and then we write it down, and that's always the North Star. However, along the way, the metrics aren't, oh, I'm 25% of the way towards this goal. It's you're picking things up, you're picking up little nuggets, and the measures are subjective. Like
Yeah.
sometimes what I notice is the perspective towards the whatever the goal is, it softens. It's like that doesn't feel as heavy anymore because I feel like I have the resources, and so that's a metric right there. I am better equipped to do this thing. And is it 9 out of 10? Is it 8 out of 10? It's arbitrary, but we do this where we play around with all the components that define you and your ability to achieve something. We track them separately from the kind of the material gains that would come from achieving something.
Yeah, I use the metaphor of like hiking up a mountain a lot. And I think that like when we are down at the trailhead, there's a degree of um, desperation
Mm.
in taking and all the fear and discomfort and worry about taking the first step because it's the start of the commitment to the summit.
Mhm.
But once your blood is flowing and you're taking steps, you yeah, like lose a degree of that desperation. And there's so much there to it. There's like you're moving, you have forward progress, you have movement,
Right.
literally like your blood's flowing, and you have to focus on all the little obstacles right in front of you. So your focus does shift. Um,
Right.
and and then you start to notice what's around you in a way that for some people might turn out to be like, I don't even really care about getting to the summit. Um, Certain life events may take place, which let's just, for the sake of the metaphor, call that like the sun is setting and you're not going to make it to the top of the summit. So you are now required to make meaning out of the limited amount of the mountain you were able to hike. And you also need to get down safely, right?
Right.
There's so much to work with, but it does go back to, I think that like desperate focus on achieving the extremely specific outcome of a goal
Right.
relative to the squishiness and like ease of what you receive when you start going towards the goal. And yeah,
Uh,
9 out of 10 times, unless it's like an extremely specific business objective for, shareholders or what have you, like movement is okay. Movement on or off of or away from the goal is, and what we're ultimately talking about is like human growth. And that
right.
just things shift once you start going.
Right. Right. Yeah. It makes me think of something, and I probably stole this from another book that I read, but that's the time when you are feeling uncertainty. That's the time to take action. Not when you're certain. I mean, obviously, when you're certain, you're done. You've learned the thing that you need. But when you don't know, do something. Like you said, move.
Try.
Do something. And you might be moving in the wrong direction, but you'll know it's the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that the experimenter's mentality, um, removes the rightness, the correctness that we have been so ingrained to feel about taking that action. Like,
Mhm.
taking the action isn't about it being the right action or doing the action the right way. Taking the action is about getting the heart rate up a little bit
Yeah.
and feeling things out and then reacting, receiving, trying something else.
Yes. Yeah. That is, to kind of keep going with that, the metaphor, the lessons that really stick for us, they don't necessarily come from the head, from the brain. We think we reason about a thing that we need or want to have, but the thing that makes it really stick is you're feeling. So you're talking about getting the blood flowing, but the whatever it is that happens that makes something really stick to you is it's below the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the folks that have been laid off recently, and I just think about how it's, um, change on somebody else's terms in a lot of ways. Like, that change was imposed
Yeah.
upon them, and like, making meaning out of that. Actually, there was one note that I jotted down that I'll reference here, which is, yeah, someone in the book says, "You don't have to understand life, you just have to live it." And the other one that I would like hitch on with that is that in the cosmic order of things, there is no rejection, only redirection. And for a lot of people, these layoffs could feel like rejection.
That's right.
And I know it's probably like a lot of things that we say may sound trite in how like simplistic it is, but if you can just take one step towards reframing the same outcome as less of a interpretation of rejection
Mhm.
or not good enough, or like I wasn't good enough to make the cut and stay, all the things that we can apply to like a layoff. um no, it's an opportunity to get nudged in a different direction that I was afraid to take, I didn't know I could take. I'm gonna have to get really creative to take. And in the process of doing that, I will actually learn more about. I just revisited the concept of like anti-fragile
Uh,
and how from like the general term of it is like creating more strength from repeated chaos. And I think about the opportunity people have going through a layoff to become just that little bit more anti-fragile if you approach this thing with a sense of purpose, like whatever your change is going to be.
Right.
uh, this can be a strengthening experience.
Right. Right. Yeah. That there's I think it's in a different part of the book, but related to what you're saying, where she says the prison wasn't the place, but the perspective. And I think what she's talking about is our perspectives, or they're colored by all the things, all the shoulds in our
Yeah.
life, and they make us lose sight of what we have and the impacts that we can make with what we already have.
Hmm.
And so, people getting laid off, it's an opportunity, like not to paint a silver lining on it, but it's just like here we are. So
Oh, dude, I'll be totally unabashed in painting a silver lining.
it's
I'm just,
right.
I don't know, maybe not jaded enough. I mean, I have gone
Right.
through some traumatic professional stuff
Yeah.
and have not been in control of my career all the time.
Right.
So I say it with a degree of like, uh, I don't know, it's like I can say it because I am one, like
Right.
I've been there,
Right.
and it does open up doors. The key, I think, part of the one of the keys to it is like, and I think this may go back to your point about uncertainty being the right time, being a great time for action, is you're gonna have the rest of your life to reflect on how shitty that was.
Yeah.
And right now, you don't necessarily. I think that, like, when you and I talk about action, we don't mean like literally get on LinkedIn and apply to 50 jobs. That's not what
Right.
we're saying. It's
Right.
that is like one of 1,000 different things you could do. The
Right.
point is just start doing,
Yeah.
and you will notice you'll. This is the other neat thing. Going back to Nora's experience of identity that you were pointing out is when you start doing these things, whatever they may be, you get in touch with other parts of your identity that were totally put in other rooms of the house while you were, the program manager at X company, or you were the account director at Y company.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I love hiking with my friends, or um, you know, shit, I just decided to take an acting class, and like, I'm not very good at it, but like, I love reading theatrical literature. Like,
Right.
things will just bubble up for you that
Yeah.
just make you feel better about yourself.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. There's this phrase, bias towards action, that you see a lot. You see it in like job listings. You must have a bias toward action. I'm like, really? What does that? What does that actually mean? When if you find yourself in an adverse situation, the bias toward action can lead you to try to just fix it. Well, I'm a product manager and I got laid off, so I'm going to double down and I'm going to like, well,
Yeah.
hold on. This is an opportunity, like you were saying. Like, let's just take a step back, take a breath. Like, what else? What is important to you? Right. And forget fixing for a moment. What is really important to you? Just lean into that a little bit. Like you said,
Yeah.
acting is not something that you want to do as a career, right? But it's something that really helps you, first of all, know yourself in a way, and to discover kind of the resources you have, even if you're not going to apply them to an acting career.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. I wonder if there was, I can't recall, perhaps you can, um, a degree of, I'm pretty sure there was a degree of, im- I think we both dislike the term, the syndrome part of imposter syndrome. So I'll say, like, if Nora had uh, feelings of being an imposter in some of the roles that she got dropped in, I think especially towards kind of like the beginning of her experience going through lives,
Mhm.
uh, and how much that can serve us to actually be like imposter syndrome just is really big buzzword, right? And like kind of right in there with vulnerability.
Mhm.
No, sometimes what I think it's so what like the antidote is on social media to imposter syndrome is like know that you're not alone in feeling like an imposter, right?
Right.
I think what I'd like to offer up to like the three people that might ever listen to this is that the imposter feeling is in service to you.
Yeah.
And it
That's
may
right.
not be the way that it serves you may not be that it says like, you're not good at acting and you need more skills. That's not the point. The point is like, is to go, oh my God, like my gut feels, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, why am I embarrassed? And then you start to unpack that.
Yeah.
That's the gift that feeling like an imposter gives you,
Right.
to know
Right.
yourself better, not to solve the material problem, just to know yourself better.
Right. Right. Yeah. So you said you don't know if she had it in the book. And I think that the reason you don't know is because I don't think she did. She literally felt like an imposter because she would drop in to another version of herself, not knowing what happened before to
Yes.
that person. So she
Yeah.
was literally an imposter. Right. But I will say she embraced it. It was awkward the first one or two times, but then, she finds herself, backstage. She's about to go on stage and play a concert for thousands, tens of thousands of people. And rather than say, I can't do this, I quit. She's like, I'm doing it. And she gets up and she calls it audible. Basically, she's like, I don't know what songs I've written in this life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We're gonna play Simon and Garfunkel, and there's this cute thing about that. And so she really, it's like that's the antidote.
Yeah.
Just just do it. Like, and
Right.
if you suck at it, embrace it.
Yeah. So what book would you pull off the shelf
Ooh,
for yourself?
I love that question. Um, I, my initial career was supposed to be as a musician, and I switched majors when I was in college, away, and I still minored in music, and it was such. I was classically trained on the piano since the age of 6, and there's always this part of me that thinks, what if, what could have been if I had stayed with that? And there's regrets around it sometimes when it's always this like we're victims of comparison. Like I see in other artists, and I think I could have done what they did, not better than them, but I could have also created the experiences for others that this person is creating. I wish. But I'll say this, and this is in this reality. I was at my 10-year high school reunion, and this guy who was a classmate of mine, also a musician, came up to me. He says, I need you to hear this. He said, there was a point where I was thinking I was going to go to college and study music performance specifically. And he says to me, I heard you play the piano, and I decided I can't do that. I'm not going to cut it. And so I switched my career to music engineering. And he now has 20 Grammys.
Oh, shit.
Right?
Yeah.
So in this life, I had that impact.
That's great.
Like I made someone, I mean, I didn't make them, I inspired them to take a slightly different path, which it suited them. Like he is so good at this.
Mm.
And he's got a shelf full of Grammys. And that feels really good. I mean, I didn't really do anything, but I was being something, and that had an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? I have to ask you the same question.
Yeah. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought of one or two while you were telling your story, but the one that's most salient for me right now is when I was 22 and I was a research assistant at the University of Vermont in the psychiatry department, where I was also co-facilitating a group therapy clinic for people suffering from chronic pain and depression. And this is back in 2006 and 7. So these people were virtually all on opioids. And my boss at the time was really progressive about finding ways to get people off of opioids and like down cycle, so titrate them off of the level of opioids that they were on. But we were also doing really incredible work with cognitive behavioral therapy and actually seeing changes that happened in the brain through fMRI scans when people utilize cognitive behavioral therapy skills. And she put a couple options on the table for me, and one option was, I will sponsor you, I will back you all the way. I can't write your papers for you, but like I'll support you in your path towards achieving a PhD here at the University of Vermont,
Mhm.
and in psychology. And then the other option was like, or I'll write you a really good recommendation because you're taking up the seat of a research assistant. So what do you think? And I went this way,
Yeah.
and the reason that I did was because I wasn't ready for the reason that I said out loud was that I didn't want to commit to 6 to 8 more years of academia
Right.
and the rigor of that. And I hope I'm not saying this with too much self judgment or self loathing, but what I think that meant was what I wasn't saying was I was afraid to fail at doing that.
Right.
And so if I could pull a different book off the shelf, or maybe lighten the load on my book of regrets,
Um,
it would be um, be embracing being a total imposter, terrible student, and trying my absolute hardest to make that work. And
right,
then letting the failure by definition of not getting good enough grades, which was what I was afraid of, letting that actually tell me I can't do it, not letting the fear tell me I can't do it.
right, right. And so you have a different relationship with that alternate life now, you know, and your wisdom. But it's giving you something. Like you didn't take that path, but reflecting on it helps you see things
Yeah.
that are important to you, and you'll show up differently. Because you had that opportunity, and you chose this one, but that you had the resources to do something there,
Mhm.
and it's okay. Like it's not really there's nothing to regret in the sense that we can't literally open the book and experience that life. All we can do is speculate on,
Right.
on what might have been, but you took a lesson from it. That's a valuable one.
Yeah. And I do think that to some degree, I'm fulfilling the aspiration that I had then, now through coaching. And there's nothing to say there's no reason to think that I can't acquire more knowledge in an academic setting in service of my coaching. So it's,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
the chapter maybe like there's an addendum to the chapter maybe waiting to be written somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. There's some, we've talked about this a lot because you're using this metaphor of chapters and books. I think a lot about the stories that we weave to justify the life that we have.
Mm.
And there's so much power. And I know you believe this. There's so much power in writing, like literally writing your story.
Yeah.
And as you talked about visioning. It's like, what's the epilogue of your book, you know? And then it's like, it's a vision of what happens. It's over. Like you follow the arc and here's what it's like at the end. And then it gives you sort of an anchor, and then you start to weave what happens between now and there in a way that has, in its sights, here's the prize, it's I don't like the word prize or payoff because it seems a little too materialistic, but like this is the life I want to have. And epilogue doesn't mean the end necessarily. It's something that you create and you
I,
envision.
I have always felt whenever I read an epilogue, it's so like warm and calming
Yeah,
generally.
that's right.
I don't read a lot of like horror or murder mystery books, but
Mhm.
like there's just something so like it like um it like sort of gently touched down.
Yeah,
And mm, that's a really nice that's where I would that is the feel that is the atmosphere I would like to be in, certainly at the end of my life. But maybe like each chapter through self-reflection has an opportunity to have its own little epilogue each along the way and go,
right.
all right, man, it's over. It's done. It was awesome, or
Mhm.
it was the worst. And here
Right.
we are.
Yes. 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 Do we need to stop at the top of the hour?
Uh, no, but it's starting to feel like a nice place to stop.
Yeah. There's one line.
Yeah, hit me with it.
It's so I tried to cut it so that it doesn't really spoil anything. So this is more about how she's feeling at the end and what happens at the end. So she says, everything was different because she no longer felt that she was there simply to serve the dreams of other people. She no longer felt like she had to find soul fulfillment as some imaginary perfect daughter or sister or partner or wife or mother or employer, anything other than a human being, orbiting her own purpose and answerable to herself. And I don't think that even needs commentary. I just like that's right at the end, and it just hits me. Like, I don't have to explain what she meant or what the author meant. Uh, this is why I love this.
All right, I'm going to do a symbolic closing of the book,
Ah.
and we'll wrap it there.